Welcome back. Our conversations continue here at Davos 2024. As I've been telling you, the two key questions that the World Economic Forum is asking business leaders who are attending the summit this year is whether 2024 is likely to be a year of a perma-crisis, or we are likely to see a resolution, resilience and recovery. Well, let me put those questions to Ken Rogoff, who joins us as always here on Davos 2024. Mr. Rogoff, many thanks. A Happy New Year. Thanks very much for joining us here in Davos again. So the answer to those questions?
Well, I mean, the first thing to say is 2023 was better than I think most of us imagined. I wasn't one of those saying there'll absolutely be a recession, but it's surprising to have interest rates go up that much and not have that happen. So all you can say about 2024 is it probably is not going to be as good as 2023. And the volatilities around geopolitical events, the still high interest rates, inflation hasn't come down, is still pretty considerable. But I have to be sobered by, look at 2023, which could have been a lot worse.
Yeah, and it didn't turn out to be as bad as people were expecting to be. We didn't have the recession in the U.S., even though, as you point out, we had record high interest rates. But on interest rates, you believe that even with inflation coming down, we're likely to see rates continue to be higher for longer?
Well, I do believe that. I've been writing about this really for a decade, that they fell off a cliff after the financial crisis, and people would come up with these after-the-fact rationales. Oh, you know, demographics, people are getting older. We're never inventing anything again. This is going to be forever. It's summarized in my brilliant colleague Larry Summers' Secular Stagnation. I never bought it. And my own academic work on this shows that we get these interest rate cycles, but they tend to go away after a time. So I think we're going to be looking at interest rates that are more normal, but not necessarily what people had gotten used to. So put a different way, inflation's coming down. Interest rates will come down, but not as much.
So where do you see the rate trajectory over the next few years?
Well, I mean, I think looking at the long end, you know, the 10-year rate, I think it's probably going to be in the 4 to 4.5 range for the United States, and inflation adjusted, maybe, you know, 1.5 to 2 in there, you know, the sort of the range it's in now. So I think a lot of the markets adjusted to a lot of this already. I will also say that studying the history, it's very volatile. So that's what I think it's going to be on average over the next decade. But, you know, we have a recession, interest rates are going to go down, but the recession's not going to last forever.
What are the odds on a recession now, the sort of late impact of the hike in interest rates, etc.? Or do you believe that the U.S. resilience that we saw to 2023 is likely to continue?
Well, I mean, the odds of a recession in a normal year are 1 in 7. I think they're higher now, so in the 25 to 30% range for the United States, and maybe for Europe higher than that because they have a whole host of other problems. You know, but it could be worse.
Emerging markets, and you wrote a piece about the stunning resilience that we saw as far as emerging markets are concerned in 2023. Do you expect that to continue? Because we didn't see the debt distress that we were fearing.
We didn't see it in the big emerging markets. So there's certainly more defaults in the lower and middle income emerging markets than we've had in a very long time. And developing economies, it's a huge percentage of them are in default. But yes, it's been surprising. Normally when you see interest rates go up this much, this fast, they're accidents. We didn't even have a crisis in Turkey, which was really hard to understand, given that, you know, they fired the central banker, you know, every 3 months and had 100% inflation.
So what do you make of that?
Well, I mean, you know, some of it is that the emerging markets have taken to heart some of the so-called Washington consensus, which, you know, politically they don't, but more conservative fiscal policy, more conservative monetary policy, and probably their own element, which is a lot of reserves. I mean, I think that's really provided some resilience. But You know, it's been lucky. I mean, I'm not sure we're going to go through another year without seeing a major emerging market or two have a big problem.
Well, we will have to wait to see what pans out on that front. But let's talk about India and the outlook for India. I mean, here the mood continues to be fairly bullish as far as India is concerned. What's your take?
Well, I mean, I think part of the reason the mood's bullish on India is it's so negative on China. I agree with that. I mean, I think when we spoke last year, I talked about that. And so India is sort of looking good by comparison, and the rate of growth is very good. But I mean, India still has a long ways to catch up. And it's doing, I think, some things really well. Like, it's finally gotten it together on building infrastructure and catching up on that, which is low-hanging fruit in development. I mean, there's no reason for India not to have world-class infrastructure in order to be able to build out its economy. On the other hand, you know, you still have, you know, some of the issues with way too much protectionism. At least according to people who study it, a lot of monopolies really in India, over concentration of power. But, you know, clearly India is very well represented at Davos here. The mood's bullish. I would be cautiously optimistic because there are some of these longer term problems that if you're really going to catch up, you need to take care of.
Presented by